It is vlog 303. Obviously a rough start to the year after booking a $2,500 loss the last time out. So it's as good of a time as ever for you to support this vlog by giving the high society group on Poker Bros some action. That's the place I've been going for practice? We talking about practice, man. Since 2020. And it's the place where you can go to play on an agent app that is the most trustworthy of any place on any app. I can guarantee you that, based on the guys who run the show there. So all the information you need to get involved is in the description below. Just use my referral code. I hope to see you on there. But for today, it's live poker. Table 1's already full here at Peppermill, so I got to jump in the second game on table 5 right now. Well, I gotta tell you, I came into this vlog feeling pretty damn good walking into the casino on this Thursday because I had not played a single hand of poker over the previous 5 days, and I definitely felt that things were due to turn for me. I'd get in the game on table 5, the second 5-10 game, at noon. And there was a rare thing going on. 2 guys just having a lot of fun, drinking Modelo's, and jumping in a poker game that they are not regulars in. I'd start off losing $100 to one of them on the first hand I'd play, raising king-queen and flopping a gut shot straight draw, and would simply give up on the river when every other draw got there and I was left with still king high. I'd make most of that back, 3-betting pocket 10s and getting a couple of folds without a flop being dealt about 25 minutes later. One of those 2 guys drinking the Modelo's decided to go to table 1, which I thought was strange. The other one would become the absolute star of our show on this day. We'd see him river a set in one hand, get called, and say, "Pay it off, brother. Pay it off." And him saying that, to me, just kind of set the tone for the kind of day this was going to be. Spoiler alert, it didn't disappoint. All hell started breaking loose in this game from an early point, including this multi-$1,000 pot between the Modelo drinker and the actual professor, which was won by just a pair of 10s with a 9 kicker. I would 3-bet pocket 9s and somehow get called by 3-6 offsuit. And because I am apparently a terrible player, I would get bluffed off the low end of a straight by that 3-6. But the more interesting hand came after that, when the same player straddles to 25 in the big blind, and I have ace-5 of clubs under the gun +1 and raise to 85. The Modelo guy tosses in the 25, not paying attention to what I'm doing, then opts to put in the full amount once he notices. Straddle also completes. And as you'll see, there is an uncapped range here. With $255 in, the flop would come out Jack 4-5 with a couple of diamonds, and against 2 guys who clearly aren't folding their laundry and are looking to play big pots against each other with not that big of hands, I'm just gonna go ahead and check this. Middle position 2 checks back, and the turn rolls off the 6 of clubs, giving me the nut flush draw. Big blind bets out for 200. I make this call, given that I could easily have the best hand here with a pair of 5s, and if not, obviously I have plenty of outs. I'm expecting this dude MP2 to come along a lot of the time too, but he doesn't. He goes out in this particular instance, and with $655 in, the river is the 9 of spades. So I brick out, per usual to this point on the year. He puts me all in, I fold the hand, and he shows the skinny. So I am very glad that an ace or a 5 did not peel off on the river in that hand. Somehow I'd already lost more than half my stack, and it felt like I hadn't really even gotten started yet. So that was unfortunate. But I had an extra hockey puck in my pocket, and I put it into the game, now in for 2,000. The Modelo's kept on flowing, and his chips never got stacked. I feel like I used to see this all the time. Guys who would play in poker games and occasionally go on these runs where it's like they would never actually stack their chips at all. They would just be this mess the entire time. That was the case with this guy. And at this point, he was up several thousand already. I would get pocket aces under the gun making it 40. He'd call in the rock, and the cutoff would come in as well. So with $120 in, the flop would come out king 10 deuce rainbow. which feels like the perfect flop to win a big pot with pocket aces. I bet 75 here. Modelo guy thinks about it for a while, but finally folds his cards. Other guy folds quickly, and my hopes of turning the day around are dashed in an instant. The Modelo guy has racks out, and it did kind of feel to me like this was a guy who might elect to hit and run, but it also felt like he might be the guy to do the exact opposite of that. And apparently, the grinder on his left did something to get him to stay. I'm not exactly sure what, but credit to him if he did it. Anyway, so he puts the racks away and was up multiple thousands at that point. He had just continued to win pot after pot, most of which obviously you're not going to see on this vlog because I was not involved in them. But he then played a bomb pot against the guy on my right, who would proceed to make a flush on one half of the bomb pot. I actually had 3 tens and kind of got out cheap on it. And he would make a full house on the other, winning a $5,000 pot off the Modelo guy. It was one of those times. And you guys know the year I'm having. You just can't help but be jealous and a little bitter. You can't help it. And I don't begrudge anyone else having success. This guy was a very nice guy, and I'm glad that he had what ended up being probably the day of his life. But when you're having a terrible year, and you just see guys like this getting into dream spots, it can be a bit annoying. But good news for me, the day wasn't over. This is a mid-session update. I have a new band that is one of my all-time favorites now. I'm not saying it's above Green Day and Fall Out Boy and Rise Against, but they're right up there. My buddy B introduced me to them back in 2010. The Swedish group Treat. Absolutely love them lately. I've been listening to them more than anyone else. I would say my favorite 2 songs, Skies of Mongolia and Too Late to Die Young. Your thoughts, welcome. Back to the star of our show. He's drinking the beers and limping in. Big blind would call. I have pocket 8s in the rock and make it 6x. Big blind goes out, but this guy under the gun isn't going anywhere. So with $130 in, the board would come out 5-7-3 rainbow, giving me an overpair. He checks, I bet 70, and would get a quick call. So with $270 in, the turn is the 3 of diamonds. I bet 125 here, and once again, I'm getting action. So with 520 in the pot, the river is the jack of spades. He checks and says, go ahead and bet your kings. Well, unfortunately for him, I'm going a hell of a lot thinner than that, and I am betting my 8s. I make it 150, just incredibly convinced that 8s and 3s with a jack kicker is the best hand. He thinks about this for a long time and proves that despite the fact that he's had a lot to drink, he's still capable of making good decisions in this game and shows 6-7 and tosses it into the muck. I would look up to see opening day for my San Francisco Giants against the Reds taking place with Elliot Ramos homering in the game. It was actually a great comeback win with Wilmer Flores having a big 9th inning home run as well. But mentioning Ramos, the Giants have had a different starting left fielder every single year since Barry Bonds last year in 2007. I'm hoping that streak will stop next year with him. But back to the action. The star of our show, in the rock on this next hand. By the way, he wasn't the only guy drinking. Long Island iced teas for these guys right here. Chips were still not stacked 4 hours into the session, and I have jacks under the gun and make it 40. Amazingly, the straddle does not call, but the hijack does. Then, the actual professor 3 bets to 180 on the button. Now, I'm not folding here. It's just a question of should I 4-bet or not. And for a couple different reasons that I'm not going to get into, I would just call. Other guy comes in as well. So, we're 3 ways with 550 in the pot to 10-8-5 rainbow, and I check. To my amazement, this gets checked through, which obviously should mean that I have the best hand the vast majority of the time. Turn's a great card for me. It's the deuce of hearts. I come out and value bet this for 185. The hijack says something like, I just can't resist. I'm going all in, with the original razor folding. The amount of that bet is almost down to the dollar, the size of what the pot had been on the flop. It's a $555 bet, and I call. So we have a $1,660 pot, and we agree to run the river twice. I think it's pretty clear that he just had a pair of 10s in this spot because I see both rivers, and he ends up mucking his cards, and a very nice pot gets shipped over to me. Look at this.
Okay, what's
Look
going
at
on?
Slick. Look at Slick. This is what he keeps. This is what he keeps in case he needs it right here. Look at this. Just in case he needs it. He's got it ready to roll.
It's true.
Whenever he needs it.
I don't want to ask for it.
2 hours later and not a single hand won during that time. But the game remains good. Apparently Homeboy's been cut off from Modelo. So he went and tracked down a Corona. And by the way, if you ask me, Pacifico is way better than both of those. Anyway, hijack would make it 25. And I have pocket jacks again. This time in the cutoff and 3-bet to 130. The beer lover is in the big blind, and he thinks about this for a while, but finally says, I'm going to go ahead and look at a flop. The hijack, who is having the day of his life, that guy, not surprisingly, gets out of the way of this one. So, with 300 in, the flop is King 7-8, 2 diamonds, and he checks. I just go ahead and check this back here. I thought about going for some thin value, but against a guy who's pretty tanked and is capable of a lot, I just decide that's not the best time for it. The turn rolls off a queen. And he says, I'm going to try and steal this pot. He bets out for less than half of it. Now, as many beers as this guy has had, and there were conflicting reports on how many that was, he's played a ton of hands, but the one thing he hasn't done a lot of is bluff. He mainly just makes a lot of calls. And I just have a hard time believing that he was going to choose this hand to finally start doing so. So I think about this for maybe another 15 seconds and finally just give the hand up. He turns over his cards, and I think he's going to be showing me a bluff here. But amazingly, he's showing pocket queens for a turn set in a hand that definitely, had it been played differently on his part, could have been a hell of a lot worse for me. If you thought it wouldn't take long for me to battle that guy again, well, then you'd be right. We'd get a limp on my immediate right, and I'd pick up King, Queen of Diamonds, raising to 35. The beer lover and the hijack, 3 bets, but does so in a very small way. He just makes it 75. +1 would limp call to 75, and I follow suit in middle position 1. And with $230 in, the flop is slightly above average. Against a guy in his position, as I'm sure every single one of you would do, I'm checking to the pre-flop raiser here. And the story gets even better for me. He doesn't just bet. He overbets, making it 400. +1 goes out, and it's back on me. Now, I have $1,300 left here. So what should I do? Should I slow play this? Because obviously, if I don't find a way to get the other $900 worth of value out of this hand, it's kind of a disaster. I ruled out just calling the 400 because we're going to get a lot of action killing cards on the turn. And putting this guy on a range when he's played every hand, it seems like, on the day here, is just going to be very tough to do. Obviously, if he has pocket queens with the Queen of Diamonds, I do think it's pretty likely he's going to call an all-in. Now, in this instance, it would not have mattered if I did this or not, but I decided to just go ahead and min-raise this, making it 800, thinking that that would look, particularly in the mind of a guy who's kind of drunk, to be a weaker play. But the minute I announce 800, he says that he's all in. And obviously, once I make the snap call, we have a $2,800 pot. And he has a baby flush. James announces to me before the cards are even finished being dealt that he mucked his straight flush out. So I cannot possibly lose this hand. And this year, that is a very welcomed thing to be able to say. We secured the double up in the hand that is the highlight of the year so far. Speaking of James, it was actually him that would finish off that player for his last 900. He knew it was going to go to someone. In this case, it goes to James in the standard all-in pre-flop Queen 6 against Pocket 7s scenario. You know, standard cooler. Needless to say, the game would then kind of fizzle out after he would leave, which was okay with me anyway, as I was prepared to rack up and book the win. What an unforgettable day. You just don't get days like this too often anymore, with a true legend like that in the game that's just going to give action on seemingly every single hand. I somehow managed to avoid disaster in that Queens against Jack's hand. If he had re-raised big pre-flop there, that could have been ugly for me. Doesn't happen. I wasn't going to give him much action on a king high board anyway, but then the queen on the turn really killed his action amazingly. And that paved the way for me to be on the right side of a cooler and get max value, as you saw. Ultimately, a $1,051 win on a day I had been stuck big early, and managed to turn it around in a hurry and come back and have a productive outing here at Peppermill. By the way, can I just tell you guys that I was just watching the movie Blue Chips from 1994, I believe it was, because I want to listen to the Rewatchables podcast of them talking about it. I don't know that any actor has ever fit the role of a coach on tilt better than Nick Nolte.
Every time we get ready to play, I just want to throw up. I'm goddamn sick of watching you guys play.
I want to see him play the same guy who's playing in a poker game. He would like lose on some sort of a bad beat or whatever, and he'd be like, "I'm through playing, you sons of bitches. You're the dumbest table I've ever played against.
And it stops right now.
I just want to go home and cry when I watch you guys play."
God damn it!
Let's give away this coin, 99.9% pure silver. And by the way, this will not be the last giveaway. I already have 2 more planned out. So if you're going to be in the running for this or any other giveaway on this channel, you got to be subscribed here to this channel, and you have to be following on Instagram at bendeach. Let's get a couple of the last nominees in before we give it away. Kevin Smith, a comment about pocket aces. Man looks into the abyss. There is nothing staring back at him. Suddenly, there appears 3 hearts. Your aces are black. The abyss has won again. Greg Evans ended his comment by writing, "I just want to see my comment pop up next to that big-ass mic." Well, first of all, Greg, I just fail to see. People say that all the time. This is not that big of a mic. It's a Blue Yeti standard. I don't know. But he says, "Ben, I've been a long time attendee of the vlogs, and maybe I missed you quitting the news gig. But are you 100% poker pro? Or are you still the news guy?" Well, I stopped talking about me being a news guy on this channel a long time ago because I just decided that no one cared. But yes, I am still a news anchor on the weekends and a news reporter on Monday and Tuesdays. I have gotten into a 4-day week, but I am still a full-time news guy here in Reno, and I have never regretted that decision. There have been times where I have looked at the poker games that I've missed and said, well, I in all likelihood would have made more there than I made working in news, because obviously if you want to get rich, working in local news is not the best way to do it. But I still make a decent living and I enjoy the work, and poker's been a great, side gig for me, and sometimes it's been the main gig. And can I just tell some of you young guys something? And I don't think I've ever heard anyone else say this particular piece of advice on a channel like this. If you're already married or in a serious relationship, it's not going to apply to you. But if you are a guy who, let's just say, you've been making your living at cash game poker for several years and you are looking to find a girl, good luck finding one that loves the idea of you playing poker for a living. You may know how good you are. I may know how good you are. You may know how much money that you're going to in all likelihood make on a given year. You know how much money you've made in the past. Guess what? None of that's going to mean a damn thing to her. Ask me how I know this, by the way. I am incredibly fortunate to have the girlfriend that I have. You all know that. But there is no chance that she would have been my girlfriend if I was not a full-time news anchor here in Reno. If I had told her all I do is play poker, you're just going to have to trust me that I make good money doing this, that never would have gone anywhere for me. So there were a lot of reasons to have an actual job and not just play poker, but that's one that guys don't talk about, and I'm here to tell it to you. But it does amaze me at the small percentage of guys who can beat poker games that do keep their job. It seems like the vast majority of them don't. They just can't resist the thought of playing full time. But I'm glad I did. So we had a ton of comments come in, plenty of others that are in the running for this. But in terms of the winner, and I'll be honest, we did not have a standout winner. I'm just going to be straight up about that. When it comes to how to win these contests on this vlog, and I will admit, I didn't exactly preface the contest with this, but going forward, you'll understand. There's two ways to win. One, you can just be hilarious. That'll get it done. Two, you can provide a comment that will help the rest of the viewers to this channel understand a key poker concept. And I believe that David Weaver did that when he said, when I'm in the middle of a brutal downswing, it helps me to recall what Third Man Walking's Charlie Wilmoth said during one of his. Your role as a professional poker player, or really as any kind of a poker player, is sometimes to take variance so someone else can have success. This too shall pass. It may be a losing year for me, but it's been a winning year for a number of my opponents. And that too has an upside. So David Weaver, you are the owner of a coin, provided that you get in contact with me at bendeach@yahoo.com. We'll have more giveaways coming up on this channel, so stay with us and stay subscribed. And we'll see you back here next week for more cash game action.
I'm through fighting, you sons of bitches! You're the dumbest team I ever coached!
Retribution! Oh yeah, we want retribution! Oh yeah, we want retribution!